Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Mastering Dungeons, your favorite tabletop role-playing game podcast, stream, game design talk, reviews. I'm Shawn Merwin here with the definitely not sore Teos Abadia.
Yeah, I may have done a lot of deck painting, sanding, all that sort of stuff, and I learned a lot. But you know what I really learned, Shawn?
What did you learn?
I played in my Friday night Daggerheart game where I'm a player, and we rolled like I rolled no dice. I think a couple people rolled, and so it was interesting to just sort of talk. And you know, one of those sessions where you explore things. There weren't like just the way it panned out. It was like the kind of thing where we were ready for a confrontation, and they're like, "We agree," and you're like, "Oh, well, cool. Can you tell us some stuff?" You know, like it was that kind of thing. And but one of the things I really thought about was some games have roles in them.
Roles and as in ROLES?
I am the face. Yeah,
gotcha.
No, ROL. Yeah, I know I said rolling, but follow me here. And even D&D does, right? And I think that a lot of what does that is like in D&D, for example, especially 3rd edition, but even 5th edition, right? You've got not only proficiency and your attribute, but your skill. And the combination of those things means the rest of us should shut up if it's talkie time, because you're going to deploy the much higher statistical chance, right? Obviously, we're not thinking of it that way, but we sort of all have that. And various games have that capability to do that. And 3rd edition was amazing about that, right? The difference between highly skilled whatever it was just absurd, right? The arcana check of the wizard versus a random person. And so, but it's interesting in games like Daggerheart, you know, maybe your attribute's a little higher, but by 1 or 2, there aren't really skills, there are experiences. And a lot of times you can justify an experience no matter what. So it's not like, you know, you might say, I'm a world-class diplomat. That's still a +2. And someone else can say, you know, dealing with adversity or something. And the DM goes, yeah, that works. And that's +2. So it's really kind of only the attribute. And what's funny is like, I realized that I don't think of anybody in the party as having a particular role, even though in the fiction we kind of do. And it was that sudden realization of, wow, I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I've always loved games or media where you have that differentiation, both for the initial tropey, okay, this is how we handle things. I think of Leverage, right? Leverage literally named the rules. And that's fun, and it takes you a certain distance in your game or in your story. Then it becomes fun when the puncher needs to be the face, right? And the hacker needs to become the whatever,
the hand, or
right, the thief, the acrobat, whatever you right. And because it's so out of character, and the hijinks that ensue. Usually you win, but you win despite rather than you win because.
Right.
And so I like when there is that differentiation, but I also like it when you as the game master or the storyteller gets to switch those things around.
Yeah. It was very interesting to think of just not having that.
Yeah.
And not even a little bit, but kind of not at all. And that was very surprising to me to just sort of think of that and go like, oh, mathematically. And yeah.
So you were playing Daggerheart, the Curse of Strahd.
Yeah, exactly. Which I'm
version. Okay.
He was talking about on the show, I think.
Yeah.
Because I didn't watch it.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
So how did you get to go so long without rolling dice? Was it you weren't rolling dice because of the game, or was it you weren't rolling dice because of the story? Because you could have a 5e game where you don't roll a lot of dice.
Yeah. It was sort of one of those typical situations. So it was really like, we were meeting Vistani and we'd rescued someone and we thought like, oh, they might be mad, but they kind of weren't. And then we thought, well, okay, there's this, you're not going to want to do what we want to do. Let's go talk to the town to see their side. Oh, they want to do the exact same thing. Well, then it doesn't, like we don't actually have a conflict here. And because they were sort of like, we owe you one for rescuing this person, it was, they weren't really looking to heavily argue. They would just sort of like position them, and we would position. So it made nothing was a hard enough confrontation to require like a roll, right? Which was sort of interesting. Yeah.
And what I think could be cool about Daggerheart is you could still play around with hope, fear, and stress, even though it's not dictated by the dice.
True.
Right. You could say this sort of thing, this argument that you're in, or this confrontation, you both want the same thing, but you want it in a different way, and it's not quite going the way you need. So, take a stress because of the of mental stress. But again, I haven't run Daggerheart, only played it.
You're pointing out how bad my DM is. Yeah, no, I'll let him know you said that.
No, well, yes, Jeff is, of course, an obviously terrible DM, which is why we had him on the show. But it's just.
No, it is interesting. You're right.
My mind instantly goes, and you could tell I'm a game designer because my mind instantly goes from how can we gamify the talky stuff?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, well, and what I think is interesting about Daggerheart is it's a game that when you read, you sort of think it will do all these things, and you realize it kind of doesn't. And then you look at their example adventure and you're like, oh, well, that's just a normal D&D adventure, right? And I think we're all waiting for published examples that really showcase different things, including like the kind of thing you talked about. And then it would be easier because we'd have these models we could pull from. I did recently play in a game that kind of gave me that. It was a play test for a thing, so I can't chat about it, but it was the kind of thing that I think all of us who had played Daggerheart before said, ooh, Daggerheart needs more games like this, right? To create this sort of, so we learn from it and those different approaches we can employ that won't just make it feel like D&D. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, real quick, it goes back to fate, right? Which you have stress and you have consequences, and you can, the stress that you take can be mental, physical, but it affects your whole entire character.
Yeah.
So you could take 4 points of stress, write it off with a consequence of, I feel bad about myself.
Yeah.
And that is still just as useful as I have a broken leg in terms of telling the story and playing the game.
Yeah. And in theory, if you wanted to loop back to roles there, that's where you could say, well, when your face is discussing this, they don't take stress.
Right.
Because this is what they do.
Yeah.
But, your random melee person, you're trying to talk with these guys and this kind of thing, you're taking stress because it's tough. I could see that.
Yeah. All right. We've just designed a whole new system for Daggerheart. You can send us, all your money and thank you. And speaking of sending us your money, we created something for our patrons, 2 new giants that to use as monsters in your game. And Patreon member Lou Anders has created Tales of the Valiant compatible versions of the Hill Giant Earthquaker and the Stone Giant Gemmaster. And this will go out to patron members by the time you hear this. So first, we want to say thank you to Lou. Lou does his work through Lazy Wolf Studios. So you can go to lazywolfstudios.com to see all of Lou's work. And thank you to the patrons who have been supporting us. And now, we're trying to get back. So good job, everyone.
Yay. Thank you very much.
And speaking of our listeners, we're going to take a question this week in our listener corner that comes in from Thorlick via Bluesky. Thorlick says, I'm a year into my D&D experience. There are so many adventure modules from earlier D&D editions. How different are the CRs of yesteryear, or what precludes us from playing the original Tomb of Horrors, for example, in 5.5e? This is a great question, and there's 2 answers to this. So the first is, if you want to look at this mathematically, it is not easy to do this very technical mathematical analysis between pre-3rd edition and post-3rd edition, because 3rd edition was really where the math became more player and game master forward. So it showed you more about the numbers and how to manage that sort of thing.
And I'll just say, like, in our main segment, we're going to talk about the classic adventure against the giants, and we will discuss the absurd numbers of monsters you face that I think will illustrate this point. I just wanted to cut in and say that.
Right. So mathematically, it's not like you can go to first edition or AD&D and say, "Oh, let me see the math behind these monsters," because there wasn't a lot of math behind the monsters. You didn't even really get a lot of experience points for killing monsters. It was mostly treasure focused. So it's a completely different setup. That said, if you really want to take an old old adventure from first edition or second edition and use them in subsequent editions, they work really well. They transfer really well to some of these newer rule sets. With D&D Next, countless people grabbed those old adventures, or what we would call modules back in the day,
Yep.
and they ran fairly well straight up. It turns out like a third level character, a group of them fighting orcs, or 10th level characters fighting hill giants, work the same roughly across all the editions. Would you agree?
Yeah, I remember doing a blog post where I converted the secrets of salt, sinister secrets of Saltmarsh, and so you can look at that blog, Thorlick, because that's one where I just walk through how I did it, and by and large, it works just fine. And it really is because those monsters, especially at low CRs, but sometimes at higher ones, they just are kind of the same until they aren't. And that's where you have to be careful, because sometimes, there is that thing that, oh, it's just a little spider. Well, if it's CR2 in the new rules, or the other way around, right? Then, well, it becomes a very different experience. Not the end of the world necessarily, but every now and then it is. And so usually, goblins, orcs, that kind of thing, it works fine. But it's when you get to sort of different levels that it can be a lot harder to convert. And some monsters, their CRs just aren't like what they were before. And so it may not be a fair fight or fun fight.
Yeah. But the good news is there's the chart in the Dungeon Master's Guide that says this is the level, this is the range of experience points you have to spend as you create easy, moderate, or difficult encounters. And you can just jot down those numbers. Okay, this old adventure has, 5 trolls. All right, 5 trolls now are this, what level? Okay, yeah, it matches. So a lot of the work is just a matter of copying down some numbers and making sure they add up.
And that was some of what we did in Forge of Foes, though you can also use the DMG, but Forge of Foes specifically tries to say for 2014, what is the fun experience? And the math is really close on monsters. I blog about that as well. But if you look at, what you can do is you can say, all right, I'm going to run, this, it says 12 of these creatures and they are CR blah. Well, what is a fair fight? Well, a fair fight for that CR is actually 4. All right, so now there are 4 of them. And what should their stats be? Well, that's where you can look at the table in Forge of Foes and you can just run off that table, right? That is what they do. And then you can color them a bit with some of the monster powers or whatever if you want, but you can use, that sort of approach to sort of, there's the fiction of what you scribe and then the numbers, and you can adjust whichever you need to, right?
Yeah. When D&D Next play tests were going on, I did a conversion of Steading of the Hill Giant Chief. I think it was for Winter Fantasy.
Yeah.
And it went really, really, I didn't do the second level. I did only the Steading building itself. And it was fairly smooth in terms of the combats that are supposed to be run. Let's put it that way. It was a fairly smooth transition. Also, for the D&D Encounters season against the Cult of Chaos, where you could play either 4th edition or play using D&D Next, I updated parts of Village of Hamlet against the Cult of the Reptile God and Keep on the Borderlands. And again, it went surprisingly smoothly in terms of the pieces that I picked to put together to make that season. There was very little work I had to do in terms of making wholesale changes to make sure that it was a balanced fight throughout.
Yep. And again, it's not so much about the math as the fact that it happens to be that a lot of these monsters sort of work. And the designers were all thinking the same kind of thing. You fight around this many orcs, you fight around this many fire beetles, right? And so that is why they are those CRs throughout various editions, and the math generally works. until it doesn't. So just, run those numbers if you really want to make sure you don't get people in over their heads. And you can always say to people, at the meta level, hey, friends of mine, I'm doing a conversion. You may find you're in over your heads if the math doesn't work out. Here's how we're going to handle running away so that it's not just an initiative turn. We'll just say, hey, you want to run away, you can, right?
Yeah. And as Teos said, in our main segment today, we are going to talk about Against the Giants, the 3 smaller adventures that were put together into one. And we are going to talk about everything we loved about it, but we're also probably will dip into the challenges of game mastering an adventure that's maybe a little bit out there. The AD&D rule set did not necessarily address everything in an easy to understand manner. Sometimes things got a little wacky, for better or for worse. So check in on that part 2 of our talk here to hear more about that. Let's jump into our news and commentary this week, starting with the Dungeon Masters actual play releasing its first 2 episodes. Those first 2 episodes have come out. By the time this show drops, it will be Wednesday, and a new one will be in the offing, so episode 3. Overall, Teos, what were your thoughts on this and the first 2 episodes of Dungeon Masters?
Yeah, I did watch them, and I think the view numbers are pretty good for first 2 episodes. They were highly produced. It's clear that the budget for this was enormous. Great overlays that explain the rules, sometimes even to the comic point where, like, I think Jasmine just ran the 2000 version of Exhaustion, and when she does that, there is Jasmine Buller is the DM. When she does that, there's a pop-up that says house rules. Jasmine has chose to run a house rule. It's just sort of funny. Like, there are fun sound effects. It sort of sounds a lot like Baldur's Gate 3. It's either the same sounds or very similar sounds at various points that make it kind of entertaining. When someone draws back their bow, you hear the noise, right? And then when they fire it, you hear that a lot of times. It was very entertaining, right? So I think if you want to look at it and say, wow, D&D is fun, well, this reinforces that for you, and it's a fun thing to watch. There were, I thought, some interesting lessons as a DM or player you might pick up on from what's being run, and so I have a video about it, and by the time you listen to this, the second one. Beforehand, I polled folks, and I said, are you going to watch the new Dungeon Masters actual play? And at the time that I screenshot this, it was 152 votes, where 50% said, I'm not going to watch it. 38% said maybe or probably watch some parts of it. And 13% said absolutely. But folks kept commenting after that and saying, I actually did like it, and positive things like that. I also asked, what would make you watch it if watch some or all of it? And 52% if it was very entertaining. Which I thought was interesting. I'm always reminded what a bad human I am. That is like the least thing I care about. Like, to me, it's all toolkit and, what can I glean from it? 21% if it provided ideas I could easily use in my games. 70% something else that they'll share in the comments, and 10% if it taught me how to play or DM D&D, which I thought was not at all what I expected. But this is my audience.
Consider the audience,
and they aren't new, right? So
right.
This may actually be a good number if 10% of the people I reached actually said, if it taught me how to play or DM D&D, that might actually be really surprising outcome, given the audience. So yeah, I thought that was interesting, but no question that people like being entertained, right? That's kind of an important part, and I think the show really did that a lot.
Yep. I did not watch the show. For reasons, I knew what was in the show. And so I sort of had a high level understanding of what content would be provided, both in terms of the play along packs and the story that is presented throughout the first 2 episodes. And I hope people enjoy it. I hope people watch it for whatever reason that they can. Like D&D, I think this is meant for multiple audiences. So not every audience type will be pleased. But if enough types of audience members can be drawn into it and get something out of it, then it will have better success.
Yeah. Yeah, so the free zombie Clot play along pack is out. Link in our show notes, or go to D&D Beyond. I'm sure they've got a way to find it. And these are all inspired by the ideas that series DM Jasmine Bula are prepared for the session. And you get a monster that appears in the actual play as sort of the highlight of this. There are a couple things that I thought were interesting. Like, the map is a very cool town map. But like the text says, there's a gallows by a bridge. The map shows 3 different bridges. It's a far bigger map than you need. And I'm like, oh, they just took a stock map. That's fine. But, in an ideal world, you match it up. Not a big deal. The zombie Clot and swarm of zombie limbs appear. These are from Van Richten's, but they're clearly in the new book. And I did reach out to Wizards and ask, hey, are these like actual play pack monsters that aren't really official, or are these official? And they're like, oh, these are monsters that appear in the book, so they are official. This is their final form, their new 2024 form. And I thought that was pretty interesting, because like the zombie Clot, I thought seemed less threatening than a number of 2024 monsters that are already out. The CR1 swarm of zombie limbs has changed substantially. Its AC is up by 2, 4 more hit points, lost its climb speed. Before, it did 2 attacks, 1 restrained. Now it's 9 damage, and the poison condition lower when the swarm is bloodied. So they've changed a good amount, and that maybe represents, what the designers are thinking there. You probably can't talk about that, but so I can just ponder.
Yeah, I mean, I can't talk about the design or anything like that, but yeah, we talked about this, I think, last time. Why do this? And I think this is why you do this, because you want people to talk about it. You want people to use this cool stuff that you're putting out. And then you hope that they like it enough to take the step to buy the book, and get these previews, make the purchase in order to get the previews for your own game. Yeah.
Yeah. I also looked at episode 2's Gremishka's play along pack. And this is a sort of, the hook is characters reach the windmill ahead of nightfall, the darkness descending, and this pack of Gremishkas is going to attempt to invade your refuge. And so you've got to shore up the defensive in a round by round as these things are trying to get in. It's a fun concept. How it plays out probably varies a lot on the DM, the way it's written. Again, the map seems to have been one of those, we took a map that existed before. Was that what the designer knew they were working with? I don't know. Things like, are the stairs difficult terrain? Can I interact with one more object? Those things aren't exactly spelled out. Not the end of the world. Some would say that's ideal. But it is the approach of these packs. But it looks like a very fun scenario. I like it's very horror, very, the dread things are coming. Cool idea. And then the last thing, Shawn, is we get a soundtrack.
Yeah, it's part of the actual play series. This official soundtrack by 5-time Grammy-nominated composer David Arkenstone. You can get these tracks on music streaming platforms, and a vinyl version will be available in August. If you pull out the old phonograph there, you can hear it in all its vinyl glory. Or go to music.apple.com, go to Apple Music, and you can find it under Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. One thing I didn't mention, Shawn, but I meant to, is that D20 Play played through these 2 scenarios already.
Oh, nice.
And so you can actually go and watch the videos. I haven't yet, but I thought that was really cool. So if you're curious, like, how do these play, or you want to run them, you already have somebody you can watch play them, because the play does not exactly match DMAP's show, right? They're inspired by that show, but during, as they say, things could have gone differently for one reason or another. And so the scenario does not reflect 100% what you see on the show. But when you watch Tom Christie's channel, you get to see ADM's run of them.
Yeah. Good on Tom for being right on top of this. He is the person who you want to go watch if you want the bleeding edge of what's available out there to run. Tom is on top of things.
Nice.
We also got more news about D&D organized play events. There is a new WPN Wizards Play Network page that provides new details on organized play changes. And it says, we're taking a step forward in bringing early access to more WPN stores around the world. In addition to the US and Canada, WPN stores in the UK and Europe will be able to offer early access for Ravenloft, The Horrors Within. The page describes how seasons, such as the Season of Horror, will work. So a season will typically be divided into 3 phases. There will be the preview phase where details of major releases are revealed, pre-orders will open, and engagement will begin through social media and community channels. That's what we're in right now for Season of Horror. Right. Yeah. We're in the preview phase. We're getting the actual play. We're getting these play along packs, etc. Then there will be the celebration phase where a featured major release will become available in stores and a D&D Encounters celebration event will launch for in-store play. So this is the weekend that the books come out for these WPN stores. Go get the book and play in a special event. So, good on them, bringing folks into stores. Mm-hmm. Then the weekly play phase will begin, where the major release becomes available globally, and players can continue their adventures with a weekly D&D Encounters play. So this is what we remember as D&D Encounters back in the day, along those lines of you go in and it is a short weekly campaign where you get to play some of the content. What do you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting approach. So they explain during the Season of Horror, the main book is Ravenloft: The Horrors Within. There are auxiliary products such as the DM screen, Tarelka deck, map pack, and partner offerings. So this is all of interest to the store. This whole page is written really for stores. And then D&D Encounters, they call it our primary program. So I thought that was interesting. It now features an opening celebration event followed by months worth of short weekly sessions that highlight our feature release for the season and keep players coming back for more. Mm-hmm. That part is what I think really interesting in this 3-phase approach that you outlined. In the past, what you did was create some buzz. Say Storm King's Thunder is going to come out, right? Which recently reviewed. So you would say that, giants are coming and people would want to know what's in the adventure. And then what began was arguably a year-long celebration until the next preview period came. And all of the play was focused on the adventure you just bought for months. What it feels like is now happening is we are getting excited for a very long time. The adventure comes, you have a month of encounters play, and now we're on to the next thing. And that's interesting because I would guess that the average group buys a book and doesn't get to play it within a month. So it's by the time you might be wanting to play it, the next book is being talked about. And I wonder if that'll end up being adjusted over time, or maybe it'll be a super successful model. But that is a difference, right? And I'm curious whether that robs energy out of sales. Like if you've been meaning to buy this book, is all these months went by and it wasn't available, you were super excited for it. You're thinking about going, to the store this weekend, and now they're suddenly talking about the next thing. Does that make you not buy it, right? Versus before you had a year worth of people telling you to buy this thing.
Yeah. Well, if we want to step all the way back, I think one of the reasons that 5e did so well was because of the slow release schedule. I think it was because Wizards was under the possibility that this would be the last version of D&D made. And they weren't going to come out of the gate just pushing product after product after product. So because they wanted to see how sales went. And that slow release was derided by some. The people that just want to be flooded with content like a fire hose were unhappy. They wanted more. But the larger audience, I would say, was served by that slow release because they had the time to, as you just said, take in things.
Mm-hmm.
I think the success
and continually
of
be not just taking it, but be excited by, right? Like you could wait 3 months to run Storm King's Thunder, and when you started, feel like you're part of it because it was still going on, right?
I think to a point. I think you and I move toward the slow release because we are soaking in the pool of D&D, right? We never leave the pool. We are always in it.
Get in.
And we want people to be in that. We want people to be in that with us.
Yeah.
Come in, have a swim. The water's fine.
Soak with us. Yeah.
Yes, that's a horrifying
Get in, loser. We're soaking.
Right. Now, we love that, right?
Yeah.
And we got to play it here and we got to play it there through different channels, through different avenues, through organized play, through our home game, through all of these things. Then there is the average player, which is I run a campaign or I play a campaign, it lasts 5 sessions, and then I lose my game, which, as we have seen and heard over the years, is 5 would be a long campaign compared to the average. So what needs to happen for certain members of the audience is, here it is. Let's get excited about it. Let us give you a taste of it. Let us put you together with other players. If it takes off, great. Go play it. Play with your home. Take these people you find at the store. Play a home game with them. If it does peter out like many campaigns do, rather than having to wait a year for your next chance to get into the zeitgeist, let's do this every 3 months, every 6 months, every 9 months, whatever that cadence will be. And we're not going to turn the fire hose on you and oversell and overmarket. We'll give you the shot. We'll give you the boost. And then we'll back away a little bit and let you naturally fall into whatever cadence your personal situation allows.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious to see how that plays. I have my presuppositions, but I'm also open to a new reality and would love to learn from how this plays out comparatively, which is always hard to compare, but I look forward to trying to do that. And one of the things I'm definitely jazzed about is this celebration event. I think that's a really great call to try to have something that is a lightning rod at the store, right? So each season, you're going to have a 3-hour adventure. They call it a robust 3-hour adventure with rules for engaging up to 4 tables, approximately 20 players at one time. So very Vault of the Draculich, which I think is probably the last time they did a really big multiplayer session. Dead and Thay as well, the encounter season. Accessible play for all skill levels, typically with level 3 to 5 characters provided, or the option for players to create their own. Participation rewards for players and dungeon masters for stores that receive physical play kits. After you've started with the celebration event, now you get the 4 weeks of play where you get the short sessions as part of the encounters. The schedule allows for 5 weeks in case the stores want to run the celebration event during the second week rather than the first week. So it's a scheduling thing. Each season, your weekly play continues. The encounter designs are for 90 minutes to 2 hours for those encounter sessions. Each includes a light narrative connection, make it easy for new players to join at any time. Continued use of characters from the celebration event with characters leveling up on weeks 1 and 3. Physical kits are available in English only and limited to the first 1,000 eligible stores to schedule D&D Encounters celebration events. For a season of horror-only stores and we get a list of countries: US, Canada, United Kingdom, Ireland, Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Australia, and New Zealand, which is actually pretty good. Like that's physical kits to those countries is a very new thing, and I think that's great. So what's in a physical kit, Shawn?
A physical kit has 5 printed copies of the D&D Encounters seasonal adventure material, including the celebration event and the weekly play. A pack of 25 pre-made characters, so 5 packs with 5 different characters in each pack for use during the season. 5 printed tactical maps used in the celebration event. Player rewards for up to 25 players. The exact rewards will vary from season to season. Rewards for up to 5 dungeon masters. And again, exact rewards will vary from season to season. And then organizer instructions in a printed form to allow the organizer to follow along. All stores will also have access to a digital play kit. So all stores can get the digital play kit. The digital play kit does not include the physical player and DM rewards, but it does provide all material needed to run the adventure in PDF form. Stores can also receive 5 D&D Beyond claim codes to be distributed to dungeon masters that will allow them to claim the adventure and the maps free of charge on the first day of early access.
And I love that because PDF format is really what you need to be able to run things effectively. You can't, do a great job printing from D&D Beyond and stuff like that. So that's great.
Mm-hmm.
And we get key dates for the season of horror. April 13th is marketing assets being provided, details. April 20th, the D&D season of horror event scheduling opens for the stores to sign up for things. So if you know a store, reach out, they can be scheduling. May 13th, player-facing information on D&D Encounters season of horror is available on D&D Beyond, pointing to WPN stores to find a game. May 19th, the digital kit with adventure PDF is available, so that gives you lots of time to prepare as DM. The June 2nd is the first day of WPN store early access in the US, Canada, UK, and Europe. June 5th to 14th is the celebration in the stores with early access. June 10th is the first weekend Wednesday for scheduled D&D Encounters weekly play. Then June 16th is when you get the release of the book itself. And those who don't have early access can run D&D Celebration June 19th to 28th.
Mm-hmm. And on June 24th, the first Wednesday for scheduled D&D Encounters weekly play for stores that don't have early access. One thing I just realized as we were reading these dates is different stores will be running things at a different cadence, which can be good or not, depending on if you have lots of stores in your area and you're like, oh, I missed, I was in here this week, but I want to play the next one over here. Wait, you're a week behind. You're 2 weeks behind. One of the problems with the previous encounter season was that it was not flexible at all.
Yeah.
Right. Everything was pretty much booked up. You might have a week off between seasons, but that was really the only break. And I know a lot of people just simply burned out. So being able to have a different schedule on different stores can be good. Stores could rerun this. Right. They could finish it and then say, oh, a lot of players are still interested. Let's run another.
That's true.
Another month of it for different groups. The players that just played, hey, could you DM? Because we have more players, right? So it does give stores and the program as a whole a little more flexibility.
Yeah, speaking of that, you now have a bunch of templates as a store that you can use for events, which presumably then gives a lot of intelligence to Wizards on how these WPN stores are running things. So this includes generic things like just a D&D adventure, a D&D campaign, a one-shot, Legends of Greyhawk, AL. So they'll be able to see those sort of numbers as they sign up. And I think presumably you're earning maybe WPN points. I don't know how that part works of it, but there may be some incentive for stores to file. I know that part's important because in the past, if stores didn't have an incentive to fill out the WPN play, they just wouldn't, because why would you take an hour to put in all these, numbers and things? And it just feels like a waste of your time. So you don't do it if there's nothing for it. And unfortunately.
Yeah. So long story short, the first season of horror is coming. If you have a local store and you want to be involved, go to the store and tell them, check out the Wizards Play Network. They are starting to run D&D's organized play. There's a benefit for the store. There's a benefit for you as the player. So get out there and beat the bushes to drum up support for D&D at stores.
Yeah, awesome.
It looks like Wizards of the Coast has filed a patent for a new AI gameplay assistant software. Tell us about this, Teos.
Well, this comes from draftsim.com, where Wizards has filed a patent for a, quote, virtual artificial intelligence-based gameplay assistant that would be used to respond to rules questions and adjudicate game questions posed by users. The patent has a number, filed October 7th, 2025, published February 12th, 2026. So this is something they applied for, last October. Interestingly, we've seen a number of things happen on the A front at Wizards in that time. So maybe they filed it for back then, and all of this is something they're not going to use. But who knows, right? It remains dangling out there. The patent outlines an AI gameplay assistant that could be used for players to answer rules questions. The general idea is that the player sends a rules query to an AI chatbot, which would calculate an answer, then rate it with a confidence score. Depending on the confidence score, the gameplay system would then either deliver a ruling or request additional details. The example that's given in the patent is of a Magic the Gathering card using actual Lord of the Rings card, which is interesting, but I guess they can because they have the right to talk about it. But it sort of says, like, when this card interacts with that card, what is it that, how does this work? I think it's really, this is a fascinating thing. One is when you try to patent something that anybody might want to do, right? You're patenting asking questions of an AI, which is literally what people do all day long, right? But now it's in the context of gameplay rules. But it's been granted, right? The other thing is everybody behind projects like this in companies, I'm not just saying Hasbro, Wizards, right? But they forget the core problems, and what they focus on is the profits and the ideal of this dream scenario. In the dream scenario, you ask an AI assistant about Magic the Gathering card interactions or D&D rules, and they give you this awesome answer, right? But our real world, our non-fantasy world, Google AI results have been found to be wrong in a significant way 1 of 10 times. That's not what you want from your game or your game company, right? You don't want to ask what it means to have the poison condition and have it be sometimes accurate. Because, I can just ask my buddy and that's just good enough, right? Like if I want good enough, I don't need this tool, right? The other thing is your tools like this belittle the enormous creativity that's behind games and the role of mastery in making us ardent fans. If D&D or Magic the Gathering were simple and easily solved like a board game, then we wouldn't spend hours on them, right? We spend a lifetime as DMs and players exploring the rules, and that's the actual benefit of all this complexity. If you try to solve it, that's actually really foolish because you're going to remove that engagement that makes it so amazing to be a DM. I think the same thing about, AI DM tools or having AIs as DMs. You don't want that for your company, and the players shouldn't want it either. You want to keep enjoying this amazing hobby. It's why I don't spend all day on any of the board games I own, right? Like they're solved things. But D&D, I will never solve it, right? None of these role-playing games are solvable, and that's what's awesome about my spending my time on them.
I agree. And I also know the pain of trying to teach people how to play and teach people where to find information. And I am as anti-AI as anyone could be. I do not want to stifle people's interest in games, in hobbies, in activities, because I like to solve a puzzle.
Yeah, but a lot of computers have been telling us, have been looking up information and telling us how it works forever. You don't need to engage an LLM for that. Right?
I agree.
Especially when what you're getting is inaccuracy. Now, you may not get as close sometimes, right? But if what we want to do is say, hey, how does this card work? There are actually tons of websites out there that tell me how cards work. And in fact, laboriously go through all of the interactions of various other card types that matter. I've never had a problem looking this up if I've ever wanted to. In the same way with D&D, I can do a Control F for conditions, right? I've got the glossary. Like there are a lot of ways to get these answers that don't jeopardize the hobby's engagement.
Yeah. I agree. There is nothing wrong with a player asking a question and you, as another player or the game master, say, look at page 76 of your player's handbook. That is how we learn. That is how intelligence is honed. And so I totally agree.
And even that it's okay to say, I'm not entirely sure. Let's run it this way right now. We can look it up later, right? Or, don't overly worry about it. You want to do, what is it you're trying to do? Your character wants to do that thing. Hey, cool, you can do it. You're a new player. This isn't important. The important thing is your idea. Tell me what you want to do, right? Screw the rules, right? Like that is just as important. And the chatbot probably won't tell you that, right? It'll make a recommendation that maybe you can even talk it into changing.
Yep. You're not wrong. In other news on the Wizards of the Coast Hasbro front, developers at the studio behind Magic the Gathering Arena have decided to try to unionize. The workers cited layoff protections, remote work protections, Gen AI protections for workers, sustainable workloads, and defined career progression as some of the issues that were driving the unionization effort. The studio that's in question here is based in Renton, Washington. The Guardian talked about it, and the CWAunion.org website talked about it as well. We have a new Unearthed Arcana. This one offering more villainous options. Continuing the theme of the previous UA, Villainous Options, these new subclasses encourage players to embrace their inner antiheroes or engage with sinister powers. We get 3 new subclasses, the Path of Lament Barbarian, the Warrior of Venom Monk, and the Primordial Patron Warlock. I don't want to go in too far into detail here on these. Anything catch your eye in general about them?
Yeah, and I'll say you can look at our detailed breakdown in the show notes for those who are Patreon members. They're neat concepts. The Path of Lament Barbarian transfers bitter anguish into supernatural rage. You've got a lot of frightening type things that go on. The Warrior of Venom Monk basically exudes toxins out of their body. That's a really neat concept, and I thought it was really nice how they come up with these throughout their progression. Seemed like a neat concept. And then the Primordial Patron Warlock invokes the signs of elemental chaos, so very much along the lines of the old adventures we've been reviewing. It's a very neat idea that almost has like a ball of fire spell. Oops, I meant flaming sphere. That is an elemental node, right, as we talked about concept-wise. And that node is something you can drag people into and do things to them. You can put yourself in it and do things because of that. It's a very interesting concept that I think you could really role play a lot out of. And there is a call out in the UA that says you may have noticed we're trying to introduce more narrative content. And we do in fact see for the Path of Lament Origins, it says your rage stems from the time, and it gives you a table of 6 things. None of them are oranges, but they are still pretty neat ideas. And just things like that where they're trying to, I think, be a little more narrative. All of these felt very narrative to me, very fun role-playing ideas. And the survey opens April 30th.
There you go. We can get some free draw steal magic items, I hear, Teos. Is that true?
It is true. MCDM partnered with Griffin's Saddlebag to convert 10 magic items from 5e to draw steel. You can get Flame Slippers, the Cranial Cradle, the Gravedigger weapon, which I like a lot, the Wand of Shadows, and more, all free. I was very happy to do the conversions. It was a really neat project. Working with folks like Willie Abiel to learn all the ins and outs of weapons was just super great. Other MCDN news, the Beastheart class has been released, so you can go pick that up if you aren't a Patreon member and got it for free. James Intercasso has also been sharing on the Patreon various parts of the Crows RPG, talking about how equipment works, how you create characters, and lots of PDFs provided that give you the early access towards what that RPG will be, which is very cool.
We not only have a new Astarion from Baldur's Gate 3 novel coming, we also have 3 more new themed Baldur's Gate 3 books. So let's start at the beginning. There is a new novel telling the story of Baldur's Gate 3 character Asterion. The roguish charlatan Asterion will free himself from a centuries-long fate of servitude or die for a second time trying in this decadently dark fantasy adventure by award-winning author T. Kingfisher. The novel's release is expected in September, but not only do we get that novel, we get these other 3 themed books from Penguin Random House. There is a notebook, a coloring book, and a cookbook. So Baldur's Gate 3, The Necromancy of Thay, is a blank notebook with gridded pages, appearing similarly to the book in the Baldur's Gate 3 game. This will release August 11th. Also releasing August 11th is the official Baldur's Gate 3 coloring book with 40 line drawings of characters, monsters, and locations from the video game, illustrated by Jay King in a partnership with 10 Speed Press. And if you can wait till November 3rd, also in partnership with 10 Speed Press, is A Feast for a 10-Day, the official Baldur's Gate cookbook, containing 65 recipes, original character or chapter illustrations, and 45 photographs. Apparently, any dishes for couples are tagged as romanceable.
Love it.
That's right.
Well, this is really smart because what they're doing is aiming at demographic Teos, where Teos is finally playing through Baldur's Gate 3.
Me too.
Are you? Well, there you go.
Yeah.
See, so they know that Mastering Dungeons podcaster demographic is vital, and selling us these things now is perfect timing, not a moment too late. Or maybe they're thinking about the TV show that'll eventually come. But either way, it's sort of funny to see things now. But hey, bring it. You know, these are the kind of things I love to see for the health of D&D. Very funny to see. And, you know, someday there'll be a Baldur's Gate 4. And so, yeah, keep it coming.
There you go. And last but not least, in our minis corner, we have new official terrain, maybe. A new set of Underdark pre-painted terrain is available in June from Archon Studio. This brightly colored terrain comes with 14 2-inch by 2-inch tiles and various wall and other pieces, totaling $140. So Teos, I'm not big into this terrain.
Yeah.
How does this compare to, say, Dwarven Forge?
You know, it's not that cheap. And this is the thing, both with, I don't know if it's their current partnership and they've opened it up, or the previous partnership with WizKids, but the terrain that WizKids would do, this $140, you know, it's not cheap. If you got like lots to build with, right? Like if this was an enormous Lego set worth that you can make all the adventures you think, but no, a lot of this is flat pieces, you know, 14 2x2 tiles, and then various wall pieces. Like you can't put walls around all of these pieces. It's just some, you know, placeholder walls and interesting bits. You can get a pretty similar set at Dwarven Forge. It's small, but you can get, 14 ground tiles and walls and things like that. And obviously Dwarven Forge goes sky high in its prices. The quality is, however, really, really incredible. I would love to see, it's fine that this exists, right? I'm not criticizing, but I would love to see an alternative for folks who really, would like to. Now, of course, there's papercraft and things like that. Lots of do-it-yourself. But it would be neat if the price point were lower. I just think at this price point, it's going to be really hard for stores to really sustain this. Hopefully I'm wrong.
Awesome. Well, that was our news and commentary section here on Mastering Dungeons. Thanks for listening, and hang in there for our part 2 where we discuss Against the Giants.